All right, WNBA owners have stood their ground. They are refusing to budge on this rev share that the WNBPA keeps harping on.
Did you hear that? $400 to $500 million in debt. That's what the WNBA owners are staring down if they cave to the players' union's demands. And they just said no. Not maybe. Not let's talk about it. They said absolutely not. The league fired back with a counter-proposal Friday night, and the message was crystal clear. We're not negotiating on revenue share anymore, we're not budging on the salary cap, and if you don't like it, we're heading straight to a lockout. This isn't some corporate chess game where both sides are playing nice. This is a full-blown standoff and one side is about to get steamrolled. Here's what you need to understand about where we are right now. The WNBA Players Association submitted their proposal on February 17th asking for a salary cap just below $9.5 million per team and a 25% revenue share. That revenue share would average out to 27.5% over the life of the CBA. Meanwhile, the league is offering a $5.65 million salary cap and only 15% of total revenue. That's a 12.5% gap in gross revenue sharing, which translates to hundreds of millions of dollars over the life of the deal. And the owners looked at that proposal, laughed, and sent back an offer with zero movement on the financials. Zero. They threw in some housing concessions for 2026, couple thousand more for veterans' retirement plans, and that's it. Everything else. Same exact offer they've been pushing since December. This is the part that should terrify every WNBA player right now. The owners aren't just standing firm, they're standing on business. They know something the players don't want to admit, and it's the elephant in the room that nobody in the mainstream media wants to talk about. This league does not generate the revenue to support what the players are demanding. Not even close.
What y'all gonna do? We're not going in there. Bruh, we lost 55% of the viewership when Caitlin Clark got hurt. I'm not losing $500 million for y'all. That's what the owners are saying.
And this is where everything falls apart. The ratings. Because here's what the data actually shows, and this is information the Players Union does not want you to see. When Caitlin Clark went down with injury, WNBA viewership didn't just dip, it collapsed. We're talking a 55% drop in nationally televised games. Indiana Fever games specifically dropped 53%. NBA TV games without Clark averaged 343,000 viewers compared to 581,000 when she played. This isn't a slight decline, this is catastrophic. The league's entire viewership model is propped up by one player, and the owners watched in real time as half the audience vanished, the second she wasn't on the court. You think they're going to hand over hundreds of millions of dollars when they just watched the product lose more than half its value overnight. But here's where this gets even messier. The WNBA ownership structure is completely fractured, and that's a massive problem that never gets mentioned in these CBA debates. 42% of the league is controlled by NBA owners. Another 42% is controlled by WNBA-specific owners. And 16% belongs to outside investors who came in during a $75 million capital raise back in 2022. So when you're talking about revenue distribution, you're not just negotiating with one unified ownership group. You're dealing with three separate entities who all have different financial interests, and none of them can be forced to sell their stake. The NBA owners don't need the WNBA to be profitable, they're using it as a loss leader for DEI optics and media packages. The outside investors want returns on their investment, and the WNBA-specific owners are bleeding money year after year. This is why the league has repeatedly refused to answer questions about how revenue is distributed between these ownership buckets, even with that massive $2.2 billion media rights deal kicking in this year. Let's talk about that media deal for a second, because this is the carrot the players keep pointing to like it's going to save them. $2.2 billion over 11 years sounds incredible, until you realize the league has been losing an estimated $40 million per season even before this CBA fight started. Reports from 2018 had the losses at $10 million annually. By 2024, it ballooned to $40 million. Over 29 years of existence, the WNBA has lost an estimated $1.5 billion. That's not a typo. $1.5 billion, and now the players want to take a bigger slice of a pie that's already drowning in red ink.
Right? Here it says the WNBA issued a statement, and this tells you they already let it be known that they wasn't rocking with the WNBPA offer and they thought it was nonsense. This is the same reason they ignored you for 6 weeks from December to January, when they put out this statement Tuesday calling the union's proposal unrealistic and alleging it will result in hundreds of millions of dollars in losses for the league.
That statement wasn't just corporate speak. That was the league publicly calling the players' bluff. And here's why the owners feel comfortable doing that. They know the players have no leverage. None. The union thought they had an ace in the hole with Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league that launched this offseason. They thought having an alternative league would give them negotiating power, force the WNBA to compete for talent, drive up salaries. But Unrivaled's ratings have been an absolute disaster. Through Week 3, they were averaging 103,000 viewers across TNT and True TV. Opening night pulled 175,000, then it dropped to 139,000, then 100,000. By the second week, they couldn't even crack 200,000. Compare that to Caitlin Clark's games pulling over 2 million viewers on ABC, and you see the problem. The players thought Unrivaled would show the world they're bigger than the WNBA. Instead, it proved the exact opposite. Without the WNBA brand and without Caitlin Clark, nobody's watching. And honestly, this is the real problem. The players are operating under the delusion that they're the draw, that fans are tuning in to watch the WNBA because of the collective talent, the league as a whole, the sisterhood, whatever narrative they're selling this week. But the numbers obliterate that fantasy. This is a Caitlin Clark league. When she plays, ratings skyrocket. When she doesn't, they crater. The rest of the roster, even the so-called stars, can't move the needle. And the owners watched this play out in real time throughout the 2025 season. They saw attendance spike 264% for Fever games. They saw Clark's presence account for more than half the TV value of the entire league. They know exactly what they're dealing with, and they're not about to structure a CBA around players who don't generate the revenue to justify it. Here's what makes this even more explosive. The players did this to themselves. The way certain veterans and media personalities treated Caitlin Clark from the moment she entered the league was nothing short of sabotage. The physical cheap shots, the dismissive comments, the refusal to acknowledge her impact. All of it was documented, and all of it backfired spectacularly. Because the casual fans who came to watch Clark saw how she was being treated, and a lot of them decided they didn't want to support a league that was openly hostile to its biggest star. The players thought they were protecting their turf. Instead, they torched their own leverage.
The WNBA did make concessions in areas outside of the salary structure, according to this source. The league is proposing housing for all players in 2026. In 2027, the league's previous housing proposal, which included 1-bedroom apartments for players on the league's proposed minimum salary and rookies and studios for developmental players, would take effect.
So the league is offering housing. They're bumping retirement contributions from $3,000 to $4,500 for veterans. They're making minor tweaks to the 401k plan. But on the money that actually matters, the salary cap and revenue share, they're not moving an inch. And they're not being stubborn just to be difficult. They're protecting themselves from financial ruin. The league is offering players more than 70% of net revenue, which is revenue after expenses. But the union wants gross revenue share, which doesn't account for the massive operating costs. The chartered flights, the marketing budgets, the arena deals, any of it. If the owners agreed to what the players are demanding, they'd be signing up for losses that would make the last 30 years look like a rounding error. Here's the timeline that should scare everyone. The current CBA expires, and if a new deal isn't signed soon, the entire 2026 season is at risk. They still need to conduct an expansion draft, free agency, the collegiate draft. All of that gets delayed or canceled if this drags out, and the league just made it clear they're willing to lock the players out rather than cave on financials. That's not a negotiating tactic. That's a threat backed by the willingness to follow through.
You guys targeted Caitlin Clark, and the owners saw those ratings that was once so high tank into left field by more than 50% when she was hurt, and all of y'all was still there. Y'all thought Unrivaled was giving y'all leverage, but in all actuality, it's backfired because it's going to show the ratings have sucked.
The owners didn't even read the December proposal. They ignored the union for 6 straight weeks. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously they're taking these demands. The silence was the response. And when they finally did respond in February, it was only to say, "Your offer is unrealistic and we're not entertaining it." That's not a breakdown in communication. That's one side refusing to negotiate because they know the other side has no leverage to force them to the table. So where does this leave us? The players are stuck. They can't strike because they don't have the financial cushion to miss paychecks. Unrivaled isn't paying enough to replace WNBA salaries. And most of these players don't have the overseas options they used to because European leagues are cutting budgets. The owners know this. They know the players have nowhere to go, and they're using that reality to dictate terms. This isn't collaboration, this is a power play. And the side with the money is winning. And the tragic irony in all of this, the one player who could actually give the union real leverage, Caitlin Clark, is the same player large parts of the league spent all of last season trying to diminish. If the WNBPA had embraced her from day one, built the entire marketing campaign around her, made her the face of the CBA fight, they might have had public support. Instead, they alienated her fan base, and now those fans are watching the CBA disaster unfold with zero sympathy for the union's position. You can't spend a year disrespecting your biggest draw and then expect those same fans to rally behind your contract demands.
Here it says, negotiations for the CBA began last fall but largely lagged until the new year. The WNBA and WNBPA met in person on February 2nd following a 6-week period in which the league failed to respond to a proposal submitted by the union in late December. During this meeting, which included WNBPA's executive committee as well as league officials and owners over Zoom and in person, players were told by members of the league's labor relations committee that they had not read the union's proposal, according to a source.
That's the bottom line. The players thought they were playing hardball, but they brought a plastic bat to a gunfight. The owners have the financial projections, the viewership data, the media deals, and the willingness to lock everyone out. The players have demands that don't align with economic reality, and a backup league that can't even crack 6-figure viewership. This negotiation was over before it started. The players just don't want to admit it yet. So here's the question you need to answer in the comments, and I want to know where you stand because this is going to define the next decade of the WNBA. Are the owners right to refuse this revenue share and protect their financial interests, or should they take the loss and pay the players what they're demanding even if it bankrupts the league? Because that's the choice. There's no middle ground anymore. One side wins, one side loses, and the future of the WNBA depends on which side you think deserves to come out on top. Drop your take below and make sure you're subscribed because this CBA war is just getting started.